not too many. Not too many. Right? Hello and welcome to August. It's August. And that means it is time for me to sit my N.E.W.Ts. The nastily exhausting wizarding tests. In other words, it's time for the next part of the Magical Readathon. So in July, I sat my owls, even though they were actually held in April, and now the N.E.W.Ts are being held in August. This is all an amazing readathon created by G of Book Roast. I will link her video announcing it below if you want to join us. Of course, you still have time to join us. It's a readathon with a series of prompts for, like, if you're at Hogwarts and you're taking your owls or your N.E.W.Ts. And so there are subjects and each subject has a prompt. And for your N.E.W.Ts, if you want to get a certain grade in a subject, you have to do the prompts leading up to that grade. And you can choose which subjects to take based on which career you want to do if you want to. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's talk about my owls for a little bit. I shared my TBR at the beginning of July for my owls, and I said that I was seeking a career in herbology, which makes sense because I'm a Hufflepuff and I love essential oils and I love plants. I actually don't have any plants behind me, which is weird. I realized as I was looking over the careers and the prompts just today, after weeks of thinking about my TBR for August, I realized that I actually sat enough owls to be a professor in herbology. So let's look at what I read to set up for being a professor in herbology. This is certainly not all I read in July. I did the reading rush where I vlogged almost every day in the last week of July, so you can, I'll link up that playlist below so you can see more of what I read. These are just the ones that related to my owls. So first, to be a professor, you have to take a total of 7 subjects. 1, Defense Against the Dark Arts, and whatever subject you want to be a professor in. So for me, that's herbology, and then 5 more. So for Defense Against the Dark Arts, you need to read a book that started with the letter R. I read Reading People by Anne Bogle. My copy is back at the library. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot about personality and all the different personality typing systems there are, and a little bit about each one. It's actually really good if you want to defend against the dark arts because you will be able to read people better. See what I did there? And then for herbology, the prompt was read a book with a plant on the cover. Now, I read Save Me the Plums, which is a plum, and as you know, plums come from plum trees, which are plants. But I also read Every Heart a Doorway, which has a lot of plants on the cover: trees, ferns, grass, plants of all kinds. Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. I talk about this more in my day 3 vlog. I'll link up. Try to make a link that goes there. And then for the 5 other subjects, for magical creatures, you needed a book with a land animal on the cover. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't find an adult book with a land animal on the cover that I wanted to read, but I read a lot of kids' books and a lot of them have animals on the covers, specifically The Rabbit Listened, which was a new book this month that we got, and look at that little bunny. It's a really good kids book. I'm not gonna summarize these books because I talked about them in other videos, might have summarized them in my TBR video, but I will summarize the books for August, but not for July. For the charms prompt, I needed to read just an adult book, and I like a book for adults, not like an adult XXX book, just a book for adults. So I read The Farm by Joanne Ramos. This was so good. I might do a review video just where I talk about The Farm. I loved it. Its genre is more contemporary literary fiction and about inequality and injustice and how that relates to women's choices and reproduction. But a novel that covers all that. So good. The Farm by Joanne Ramos. For History of Magic, I needed to read a book that was published 10 years ago. I actually read 2 books that would count for that, but the one I'm going to share is The Cruelest Month by Louise Penny. This is the second book in her Inspector Gamache series. It was published in 2007, which I cannot believe was 10 years ago because that seems still very modern and contemporary to me. So The Cruelest Month by Louise Penny. For Muggle studies, you needed to read a book that was just a contemporary book. So several of my books counted for that, but I'm going to specifically count Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar, which I absolutely loved. I talk about it in day 1 and 2 of the reading vlog last week. Potions, you needed to read another, you needed to read a book in a series, like a second or third book in the series. And I read Fatal Grace by Louise Penny. It's actually the second book in the Inspector Gamache series. The Cruelest Month is the third book. And yeah, it was good. It wasn't as good as the first one. I hear it gets even better on book 4 and on, so I'm going to keep reading that series, but that is what I read for my potions. So that means that I got my owls in Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, Charms, History of Magic, Muggle Studies, and Potions. And I didn't even realize it until the end of the month. So now, let's talk about what I'm going to read to become a professor in herbology with my N.E.W.Ts. So to be a professor in herbology, I need to get the top grade, which means finishing 3 prompts in herbology. I need to get the middle grade, which is finishing 2 prompts in Defense Against the Dark Arts. And then I need to get an acceptable, which is just finishing 1 prompt for at least 2 more subjects. So that totals 7 books, but since I read 12 books in July, 7 books just doesn't seem like that many. So let's talk about what I'm going to read for those 7. And then I'm also thinking about getting a higher grade, an E, in magical creatures, and adding on some other subjects like charms and history of magic. So I've got my notes here because there are like so many books I could read and want to read. The first prompt in herbology is either listen to an audiobook, which I don't really love audiobooks, or read a book with a green cover. Luckily, the next book in the Louise Penny series has a green cover. It's called A Rule Against Murder. It's got this beautiful mossy green as steps go up to blackness. Very creepy. So this is what I'm going to read for that. A Rule Against Murder is the 4th book in the Inspector Gamache series. These are books that are set outside of Montreal in a tiny little beautiful village of 3 Pines in Quebec, and it's really more about the people in the community, and they're all kind of weird and sweet, and they have a real sense of like community and friendship, and the place is beautiful, and yet somehow murders keep happening there. And this inspector has to come in from the Sûreté in Quebec, Inspector Gamache, and he loves it there, and he loves the people, and he does a lot of listening. It's a very cozy mystery. There's not like gore. There's sometimes a little bit of a creepy thriller element in some chapters, but it's very kind of mild and beautiful. It's beautifully written, and it's really more about character studies, although there's like a pretty good plot going along too. So at least that's in the book so far. I hear this one is really good, so I'm excited to read A Rule Against Murder for my green cover. The next in herbology is just to read any book that's in between 350 and 390 pages. Now that is like most novels. So I just picked one. I have like 6 on my shelf that would fit this. That's just the shelf of books I want to read here soon. So I picked The Brutal Telling, which is number 4 in the Inspector Gamache series, because I figured when I finish this one, I'll be happy to read this one next, The Brutal Telling. So this is number 5, and I just told you about the Inspector Gamache series, so I don't know what it's going to be about, but I'm sure there's going to be a murder in 3 Pines, and Inspector Gamache will have to solve it. So the next, to get a outstanding, I'm kind of confused about how the grades work. To get an outstanding in herbology, I need to read a book that has a flower on the cover, which I'm so excited about because this book has been on my shelf since I found it at the used bookstore. It's Kate Atkinson's Life After Life. If you've been watching my reading roundups for a couple months, probably about 6 months, you know that I've read Kate Atkinson's Jackson Brodie mysteries and her books that are not mysteries, like Transcriptionist. And then the synopsis says it's about a girl, Ursula, who is born and dies before she can even take a breath, but she is also born and lives And so I think it's kind of a sliding doors, parallel universes where she dies or doesn't die in a bunch of different options. It starts out in 1910, so it's the beginning of the century. But as I was looking at the synopsis, look at those end papers. Do you see those bunnies in those end papers? Is that fabulous? And is that not completely herbology? Bunnies and then a big plant and tree, and look at the birds. It's just beautiful end papers. I love when a book has gorgeous end papers. So that's Kate Atkinson's Life After Life for me to get an outstanding in herbology. So I need to read these 3 books in this order. Again, I might sub out something else for this, especially if something comes in for me at the library that fits this prompt but no others. I'll probably put this one back on the shelf because I own this one too, so it can wait. And then I need to do Defense Against the Dark Arts. Now I need to get a Exceeds Expectations, which is 2 prompts in Defense Against the Dark Arts. The first prompt is read a book that is black under the dust jacket. So I'm going to read The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson. I bought this. I pre-ordered this before it came out because I love G. Willow's work. You might recognize her as the creator and writer of the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel comic. So she's the first Muslim American girl superhero in the universe, and I loved the writing on that. It was so funny, it was so sweet, it was very just realistic about what it's like to be a teenage girl, especially one who feels outside of the norm in her New Jersey high school as a Muslim American. I think her family's Pakistani. So G. Willow, she also wrote a beautiful memoir that I read and loved, and so when I saw she had this new novel coming out, I jumped right on it. It is indeed black. It almost looks navy. It's pretty it's blackish under the cover, and it's got a beautiful map inside. It's the story of a girl, Fatima, who is a concubine in the court of the Sultan of Granada, and this is the last days of the Muslim Granada in Spain. It's in the south of Spain, and she needs to escape because I guess a war is happening, and she goes across the Straits of Gibraltar to Morocco, but not to Morocco, to this magical island there, and serves the Bird King. So it's like a fable, it's a fairy tale, and G. Willow has a beautiful writing, so I'm really, really looking forward to the Bird King for Defense Against the Dark Arts. Now, the second prompt in Defense Against the Dark Arts was, go to your, just off the top of your head, what's the first book you think of from your TBR? Now, the first book I thought of, honestly, was these books that I've been thinking of already reading for just a career in herbology. I didn't realize I was going to be a professor in herbology, that I had those credits. So it took me a minute, and I glanced up, and my TBR bookshelf is kind of across from where I sit on the couch, and I saw Lock Every Door, which I read in July and completely loved. I have a vlog about that. And I remembered Riley Sager's has earlier books I wanted to read, the first of which is Final Girls. So that's what I'm going to read to get an Exceeds Expectations in herbology, is Riley Sager's The Final Girls. It's about, you know how when catastrophes happen in horror movies, there's always one girl who survives? Well, the media gives these girls that are left after horrific events the name The Final Girls, and I guess they all get together and then someone starts coming after them. So that's The Final Girls by Riley Sager. It's going to be like a thriller, and that will give me the grade I need in Defense Against the Dark Arts. So then all I need to set my notes is 2 acceptables. That's just 1 prompt each in 2 different subjects. So I'm going to choose subjects. You can only choose subjects I already sat my owls for. So I'm going to choose, because it's herbology, potions and care of magical creatures. So the potions prompt is Polyjuice Potion. So I don't have to look like my friend, but I do need to read one of my friend's favorite books. And I will tell you, this is kind of hard to come up with. I texted both Jay and Jolie and some college friends and said, what's your favorite book? And honestly, I've read all the ones they told me. So Jolie and I kept talking about our favorite books. The more I talked with Jolie, the more she was talking about some of her more recent favorites. And we came across a book I haven't read that I'm highly interested in reading, which is Agatha Christie's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So this is, I haven't read any of the I don't know how you say it, Poirot mysteries. How do I not know how to say this? I know lots of you are going to be like, how do you not know how to say it? There are tons of movies and TV shows about Hercule Poirot. I don't know. I have read Agatha Christie's Miss Marple books, a couple of them, and I really enjoyed them. They were, I think, maybe the first cozy mysteries I had ever read, and I really enjoyed them. So I'm looking forward to the murder of Roger Ackroyd. That will give me an A in potions. And then for magical creatures, inspired by Aragog, the spider, we need to read a book that starts with the letter A. So for that, I'm gonna read V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic. I've started this book a couple times. It was just in my recent haul video. I started it a couple times from the library, but it was always due back or I had other books. So I'm happy to put this on my I am going to read this book this month. And then super excited to read it because I love Victoria's writing and her other series, the Villains series, I completely love. And I got into this one last time I picked it up and I just didn't get a chance to finish it. So I'm just a couple chapters in, so I'm gonna read that for an A in magical creatures. I might start this very next, even though this isn't, like, the books I have to read are in Herbology and Defense Against Dark Arts. That's these. And then then I just have to pick any other two subjects and get an A in them, which will be this and this. So that concludes the books that I have to read to become a professor in herbology. It is this stack right here. It's a big stack. So that is my to read stack for the N.E.W.Ts. And happy August and happy revising. I was gonna say studying, but we're being British school children. So happy revising for your N.E.W.Ts. If you're taking part in the N.E.W.Ts, let me know below. If I will link up the N.E.W.Ts announcement, which completely explains a readathon in case you're like totally lost. If you are also reading any of these books, or if you've already read them, let me know what you thought below. Tell me what you're reading this month. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, comment below, and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. You'll get more bookish videos from me every Monday, and you'll get starting back next month, the podcast will be back on YouTube with lessons for your creative business every single Wednesday. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you later. Oh, I'm popping back in here as I edit the video to say, I almost forgot to tell you, tomorrow, August 2nd, is the Dewey's 24-hour readathon. And I think I'm going to join. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time to 8 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, August the 2nd, to 8 p.m. Eastern time Saturday, August the 3rd. We all start at the exact same time. It's not like 8 p.m. your time zone. It's 8 p.m. all at the same time, whatever that is in your time zone. And we read as much as we can 24 hours. My in-laws are probably visiting this weekend, so I actually think it's a great time because Jay will go out with the girls several times during the weekend. Do you want to do it? Are you going to join it with me? I'll link it up below, and then I'll probably vlog throughout it and post that vlog on Monday. So see you back here on Monday, and I'll see you. Oh, I'll be talking on Instagram stories throughout the readathon. So join me over there. I'm at Tara Swiger. It's linked up below.